Hey, podcasters, welcome back to another episode of MProper Mimi. This is your host, Mimi Jax, and we welcome you where we're going to talk about women and how we can empower ourselves at home, work, and play. Today, I have a guest with me, Miss Melanie Morris. And Melanie is a friend of mine that we have known for a long time, and we have been riding bikes together for a long time. And Melanie actually got me into it for a good portion of my time in Boston. So I'd like to just thank you, Melanie, for coming on today and being with us on the show.
Awesome, Mimi. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. And I love empowering women, and I love cycling. So let's talk about it. Let's definitely talk about it.
Exactly. Yes.
So,
Well, first, why don't we, let you introduce yourself to the people. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how is it that you came to loving cycling so much?
all right. So I'm Melanie Morris, and I am the founder and leader of the Yellow Jacket Cycling Club. I initially founded the group in Rochester, New York. As
Mhm.
a child, I always loved to ride bikes. I was always on my bike. And I grew up in the time with, no helmet, no hands. I just ride
Mhm.
for miles and miles and miles straight down, no helmet, no hands. You fall, you scrape up a knee, you
You
get up
get
and you
back up.
get back on and just continue riding. And then, of
Yeah.
course, then you start driving. And I went to college, you're still driving. And after college, there was, and this is all in Rochester, New York. There was a friend of
Mhm.
mine, one of my girlfriends, Mimi, who she
Mhm.
said, there's this writing group, they raise money for the science center. We come, we pay maybe $60 or something. We ride with a ride leader every Tuesday night for about two
Mhm.
hours. And I was like, wow, that sounds fun. So I joined the group. And when I joined, I had this, I swear that thing weighed 50 pounds, this 50-pound Huffy bike. The
Uh-huh.
fat tires, a really, really heavy bike. And I just fell in love with riding again. So
Mhm.
as I continued to ride with this group, there was this guy, I'll never forget him. His name
Mhm.
was Eddie Lopez, and we were going up the hill. And Eddie Lopez had on, he had the matching jersey, the matching shorts.
Oh.
This is before I understood any of that stuff. He had the matching gloves and the matching tires. And I was like, wow, this guy's really decked out. And we're going up the
Uh-huh.
hill, and I'm pretty much even with Eddie. And I'm like,
Okay.
Eddie's looking over at me. He's like, you're on the 50-pound Huffy. And I'm looking over at Eddie like, well, you're on, the 10-pound Eddie Merckx or whatever he was riding. And so
Yeah.
we pretty much both got up to the hill, both got to the top of the hill about the same time. And he stopped. He says, you're really a good rider. If you went and bought a real bike, you'd really be dangerous. And I was like, what is Eddie Merckx talking about?
Right,
So
right.
within, I don't know, maybe a week or two, I went to the bike shop. And then I
Mhm.
came back the next week and I told Eddie, I said, I am not paying $1,000 for a bike. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Shortly thereafter, I actually paid $1,500 for a bike, and
Uh-huh.
I never looked back. That was the start of my cycling career. So that's how I actually got into it.
Oh man. Yeah.
As you probably know, as we all know, cycling's and as many sports are, it's not diverse. So as I
Mm-hmm.
went to these rides, I was always the only Black person or person of color, or me and whomever I invited. Me, I'm always inviting somebody. Let's go on a bike ride. Let's go on a bike ride.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I know we have bikes. I said, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
start my own group. So I just started asking friends. I said, hey, if I organize bike rides, will you come to a ride? And they were like, yes, yes, yes. Everybody said yes. So I
Yeah.
started collecting emails. It was 5 people, then it was 10, and then it was 50, and then it was 100, and then it grew to like 400 names. All those people did not come on bike rides. Let me clarify that.
Oh,
But
I know
they
how that works.
right,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So, they want to be on the list. They may come out, they may not come out. And would also like summarize the ridings and, just share funny stories about what happened on the ride. And some of people said, you
Yeah.
know what, we just want to hear the stories. We like your riding, and maybe we'll come out, but don't take my name off the list.
Yeah, I know, because you do have a great way with people and with words, so the stories you tell and the way that you get us to do things, so I mean, anybody who's ridden with Melanie will probably tell you at some point, but there was some hill or some obstacle or something that we just did not think that we could achieve. And she's like, oh, yeah, you can, just come on. It's just right up the hill, or, just push a little further, or like, it's just right around the bend. We're almost there. And next thing you know, you just finished a century or.
I love that. I love to, people think, oh, I can't do it. And one of my key, I'm going to give away one of my secrets here. So if you're listening to this podcast, do not tell my secret, okay? Because what people will do is they'll say, so I started the beginner group, and then I also branched off into an intermediate group or a faster group. So
Yeah.
for my beginner rides, people would always ask, well, how far are you going to ride? How far are you going to ride? And I say, oh, it's just 2 hours. Because when
Uh-huh.
you tell people, the ride is 17 or 20 miles, they're not going to show up. But if you
Right.
tell them the ride is 2 hours, they will show up. And I say, oh, 2 hours with breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ride slow. If you need a break, we're gonna stop for you. It's not a problem. And then they come out. And then, at the end of the ride, I say, hey, you know what? You rode 17 or 20 miles. And they're like, what? Oh my
Like,
gosh.
yeah, that like
Yeah.
in one ride I did that, and yeah, and it feels so good to know that you could do that. And then it's like, you know what, I could do that again. Let me come out with the group, next week and do it all over again. Yeah.
I had this was in Boston. So then I moved to Boston. I started chapter 2 in Boston. And
Mm-hmm.
I many stories that I remember, but one of my stories, this is my barometer. There was one young lady that came out. She had just learned how to ride a bike 2 weeks before she came to my
Oh
ride.
man.
And she
Mm-hmm.
completed my beginner ride. So for anybody who complains, I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about such and such. Let me tell you about Michelle. Not you, Michelle, another Michelle. I just
Uh-huh.
made up a name. But so yeah, no, you can make it up the hill. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, I struggled too when I first got back into riding. And somebody
Yeah.
was there to say, you know what, you can. This is how you get up a hill, or you can do it, and you can do it. And by the time I got to the top, I was like, wow, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really remember too about, the times that we rode in together in Boston, because now that I've been in New York, I've been in New York for going on 6 years. Is this going on 6 years? I think it might be going on 6 years. Time goes by so fast. But when we were riding in Boston, at first, like you say, we ride as a child, great fun. And then you kind of, go to college, you go, life happens, you kind of fall out a bit. But then I remember my dad was beginning to ride. He wanted to ride like halfway across the country from like Indiana to Boston, right? And I was like, oh man, we need to like prep for this. And so I started riding with him. And so he finished his ride. It was successful. Good job, Dad. Um, but then I enjoyed the times that we were riding out together, so that I'm like, I want to get back into riding. So then I think Mahalia probably connected us. I think maybe through Mahalia.
Yes. Mhm.
And then I started coming out for the rides, and I was like, okay, this is fun. But beyond just having fun and having a group of other like-minded cyclists and beginners and whatever level we were at riding, you also taught us a lot, like you say, how to get up a hill, how to pace yourself, how not to bonk, because I know that I've done that a few times where you just don't have any more energy to keep going. You kind of just like,
Absolutely. And those are things I enjoy doing. Just, I enjoy the overall cycling package. And, as you were just saying, Mimi, is,
mm,
teaching, just starting from the basics. You
yeah.
can do this, and you need to, how to properly fuel. Do not come to the ride not having eaten anything, or, bring your liquids and bring your electrolytes. And when
Mm-hmm,
you have the total package, or when you understand that total package, it
mm.
can really be a great sport. And I remember, yes, Mahalia definitely introduced us, because when I moved to Boston, I knew one person when I started grad school here.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and then when I started the bike group, I may have known 10 people. And then those 10 people started telling other people, and those 10 people started telling other people. And Mahalia told you, and then you got on my
Mm-hmm.
email list. And that's even now, that's how I pretty much recruit people. I ask my
Yeah.
cyclists to tell other people. And you know how I roll, Mimi. If we're out riding and I see another Black person on a bike, or a person of color,
That's
exactly.
right.
Hey, do you ride? Can I get your email address?
Right? Be like, "Ooh, nice kit, nice bike. What's your name?"
I get that question often is,
Mhm.
where do you find people to make your group so diverse? And I tell people, you've got to
Yeah.
go, you have to go to the people. If you see somebody, don't be
Mhm.
shy. Just say, hey, do you ride a bike?
Yeah.
And there was last year I recruited so many people, even I know in the midst of COVID, just
Mhm.
people that were route riding, and I'd flag them down, or if I'm driving, I'll chase you down.
They'd
True
be like,
story.
"What?" Right?
I'll chase you down if I'm driving my SUV, or if I'm riding, I'll flag you down. And
Uh,
last summer there was one gentleman, he was actually walking in Newton,
mhm.
and I just, Tony and I were riding. Tony's one of my riding partners here, my morning riding partner. We're good because he lives
Yeah.
in Brookline. So that's right. You met Tony. So
Mhm.
we're
Yeah.
just like 2 miles away. So it's great for our, 6:30, 7 a.m. rides. And we were riding one Saturday, and this black guy was just walking in Newton. I was like, hey, yelling across traffic, do you ride a bike? And he says, you know what? I just finished a 20-mile bike ride. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
oh, yeah. So he like ran across the street, and I got his email, and he actually ended up coming to several rides with us. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I love even some of the routes because every now and then, like when I come back to Boston, I love that Situate route, where we get to go ride by the water. We start in Rockland, um, and it just kind of gives you like a sense of peace, like, okay, I ride in New York and a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're crazy. You're riding in the street. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? And I'm like, it's great. It's a great way to get around. It's a great way to get to know the city. This is kind of how I got to know the streets, the neighborhoods, and meet with different people too. Because that's one of the first things I did when I got here. I was like, let me see what kind of bike groups there are, but ride with other black cyclists, ride with groups in Prospect Park, ride with Brooklyn Bike Crew was one of the rides that I jumped into, and they did fun rides. Like Melanie always wouldn't let us sometimes stop for food, but like we could stop for
Let me
snacks,
talk about that. Okay, let me talk about that. Let me defend myself, people. Let me defend myself.
Yeah.
So I just personally, I when I eat or stop for snacks in the middle of the ride, that just ruins it for me. I do not want to
Uh-huh.
ride home. So if you've been on a ride, we'll stop for a little bathroom break. You can get a little water, you can get some electrolytes. We're gonna be rolling shortly after that.
And I'm
Now,
like, can we stop for pancakes? And Melanie's like, what? She's like, no.
speaking of, there's a funny story. We were riding, we were riding the oh shoot, the Dover route. And where we
Mm-hmm.
stop at that general store, and Isla was with us. I don't know. Do you remember Isla? Did you ever meet Isla?
Yes,
You
yes,
go,
because she moved to New York, and so we met up in New York. We didn't go bike riding, but
oh,
we had got some
oh,
dinner one time. Yeah,
oh, nice, nice. Okay. Because I think when you were here, I think she had just moved to New York, and then maybe you would just come
yeah.
on. So anyhow, so we stop at the general store, and Isla goes up in the restaurant. Now this is a bathroom's quick snack break. She
Mm-hmm.
goes up in there and comes out with like a full course late breakfast. And I'm looking at her like,
Like, what is
Isla,
that?
Isla, what's up, girl? She was like, look, I gotta eat. I gotta eat.
Well, see, maybe we could do like a compromise. Like if we plan to go to a destination and eat, and then and maybe just have a light. You could just have
Well,
something light,
why
you
can't
know,
we? What we can do is we can start at the eating destination. We can go do the ride, and then when we come back, we can eat all we
and then
want.
eat. I mean, I've done miles like so when I moved to New York, I linked up with one of the cycling groups here that does like long distance. And because I did the ride in Jamaica. I think that was 2017. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go ride in Jamaica for like 3 days, like 50, 60 miles every day. And then I'm like, I need to train, like let me train for this. So then I joined the group and started doing rides with them. And yeah, they would ride maybe from New York to Nyack or to like some of the other suburbs, like outside of New York, so going over the George Washington Bridge, going up or going through the Bronx, to get out of the city. And but we would stop, for lunch or, stop. And then I'm like, okay, let me go in the grocery store and get like a snack or something and then get ready to head back. So, I've kind of grown accustomed to those destination rides or even with the Brooklyn Bike Crew, we rode over to New Jersey for pancakes at this, I think it was
Ooh.
Brownstone Factory or something like
Mm.
that. So good. So delicious.
So how did you
Um,
feel? How'd you feel about getting on the bike after stuffing your belly with pancakes?
Pancakes and sausage and hot chocolate. Mind you, that was like one of the coldest days ever. It's like we're out there biking and it was freezing. You know, I, but see, even when I eat, I don't really eat to get full. Like
Oh, okay.
I took half of it back with me. Like
Okay.
it was
All
a
right.
huge pancake wrapped with a whole bunch of stuff. I
Okay.
took half of it back with me. Um, but yeah,
See,
yeah.
yeah, see, I'm greedy, so like
You
take
wouldn't be able
half
to stop
back.
yourself. Yeah. You're
Right.
like,
It's like,
who
you want
does
me to eat
that?
half a pancake? No, no. Who does that? Who does that? No. But
Oh
you
my.
did mention one thing. Let me share with everyone that Mimi and her dad were my only father-daughter duo. Actually, they were my first
Oh.
father-daughter duo and my only
Mhm.
father-daughter duo while she lived in Boston.
Yeah.
As of last year, I did recruit a second father-daughter duo from my cycling spin class,
Oh,
and they started
cool.
coming out last year. And I was like, "Oh, this reminds me of Mimi and her dad."
Oh, so
I love,
sweet.
yeah, I do. I love father-daughter duos. It's just, it's just,
Yeah.
I think it's just so special as adult women when you're
Mhm.
able to do something so precious with your father.
Yeah.
I lost my father back in college, so I didn't
Mhm.
have this opportunity, never had the opportunity. So I just, whenever I see the father daughter duo, it always puts a smile on my face.
Oh, that is so sweet. Yeah, and it is, because even as we get older, we think of ways that we can bond, with our parents or with our family or something. And that actually turned out to be something. It's actually cycling and golf. He taught me how to golf as well.
Oh,
And so like, sometimes when I come to visit, we either go biking or we go golfing, and he's always on the golf course. So
nice, nice. Well,
yeah.
please tell Dad that I will be. Let me just tell him myself.
Yes, because he's going to listen to this.
Exactly. He's gonna listen. All right, Mr. Leslie. That's right, Mr. Leslie. I'm gonna be expecting to see you on a yellow jacket ride this year at some point. Okay.
We'll get him like get back in shape, get on that bike, and we'll come out for one of your beginner rides so we can like show everybody else how to do it.
Absolutely. And again, you don't even have to be in shape. Come to my Sunday on my Sunday rides. Let me just talk about my rides. On my Sunday rides, anybody can
Yeah.
come. Any bike, anybody can come. We usually, when I haven't started yet, but when I do start, we usually leave around Sundays at 4 o'clock from somewhere in Brookline, usually Coolidge Corner area here in
Mhm.
Boston, and we'll ride for 2 hours.
You
And
never
we'll
know where you may go.
there's some nice quaint neighborhoods and we'll bring you back.
Mhm.
And if you're a more experienced rider, on Saturday mornings, usually I like to be on the bike by 8:30.
Mhm.
We're on the bike riding some, and I will say this, in COVID, I did cut the miles down because,
Oh,
a lot of places have closed their restrooms.
oh,
A
that's
lot of the
true.
places that we normally stopped, and even that general store that I mentioned where Isla was, there's a gas station next
Mhm.
door, and that was one of our major pit stops. And they said, restrooms closed. So
Yeah.
last year during COVID, I did cut the miles down to probably under 40 or maybe
Mhm.
even under 50. There was maybe one or two exceptions where I went over 50. But usually the
Yeah.
Saturday rides are under 40, under 50 miles.
Yeah, yeah. And it really, and the more you do it, the more you build that endurance, and I think that was one thing that I was really proud of. Because whenever Melanie would say, let's go for a ride, I'm like, okay, yep, I'll go. Like, I'm
Right.
up for anything.
Let me
I'm
tell
down.
y'all. I say, Mimi, we're gonna ride to the moon today. She say, okay, I'm game.
Be like, what time do you want to meet up? Okay, let's go.
She was definitely, when she was in Boston, she was definitely my ride or die. Whatever I said, she was always down for. And I was just so happy with your progress, Mimi. And
Oh
to watch
yes.
you and others, or somebody else now that's on my radar that I'm watching, to start
Hmm.
from, as with an older bike like I had. And then I remember when you
Yeah.
upgraded your bike with this bike shop here around the corner from me. And then you started
Max.
doing right, and then you started doing longer rides, and it's always beautiful to see the progression. And I'd probably say in my cycling career, there's probably been about 20 people or so who,
Hmm.
were just straight out beginners. Some people were
Hmm.
even more of a beginner than you were when you came out.
Oh wow.
They graduated to riding across the state, or
Hmm.
riding these 500-600 mile rides, and that always warms my heart. So your progress, and
Yeah.
you caught on really quick, and you can tell you loved it, and
Oh
that always
yeah.
warms my heart to find somebody, or to introduce biking to somebody and they actually end up falling in love with it.
Yeah. And it is such a great activity, such a great sport, such a great challenge. For me, it's like a challenge to myself, like, oh, I know I could do this, just keep pushing and get through, make it up that mountain. I still haven't. So right now, part of a lot of people go up to Bear Mountain and it has, I don't know, maybe it's a 4% or it has like a really steep incline,
Hmm.
and you get all the way up to the top. I haven't made it up. I haven't gotten there yet to even try to make it up to the top, but it is on my list of things to do that that's one thing that
Love
I
it.
want to try to achieve. And also ride my bike to a winery. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with, because again, I wouldn't go to a winery to get drunk. I would
Yeah,
just go to a winery and have like a glass or two, or maybe a
sure.
tasting, have like a little meal, relax, and then be like, okay, let's go back.
I love it. Awesome. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep
Yeah.
you posted.
Def- definitely keep me posted. I'm just going to
Yeah.
share. Unfortunately, this year I lost one of my main cyclists from back in Rochester, and I
Oh.
just want to share a couple of a funny story about him. His name was Nate, and he
Mm-hmm.
was my ride or die in Rochester. I mean, wherever, we were always together on the bike, and just
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful, wonderful guy. He also ended up being, well, actually, I should tell you how I met him initially. He ended up being my mom's handyman for, he could fix anything, fix our cars, fix stuff around the house. And then he was my
Mm-hmm.
biking partner. And we were in the gym one day, and I had never seen him before. So he came over to me, and I was getting ready to leave, and he said, hey, what's your name? And he had this Virginia drawl, the Southern accent. I'm
Yeah.
like, Granola.
Uh,
He said, what's your last name? I was like, Bar. And I ran, I ran out of the gym and went home. It's like, why is this man coming up to me asking me what my name is?
uh-huh.
So I saw him the next day. I came back to the gym the next day. He said, why'd you tell me your name was Granola Bar? And I was like, okay, this guy seems like he's cool. So I gave him my real name, and then, we exchanged information, and then we ended up
Hmm.
riding together, and then we learned he could fix stuff. But on the bike, oh my gosh, wherever I went, he was always there. And he was very comical. He's the guy
Hmm.
that came to the ride that always got lost. It's like,
Oh
oh, where's
Lord.
Nate? Like, y'all, what? Who's watching Nate today?
Right.
Why is he out front when he doesn't know where he's going?
Don't
But
follow him.
right, exactly. And I would tell some people when they came to the ride, do not follow him. Okay. If you follow him, you're following him on your own, because sometimes he gets lost. But the day he came to the ride with a full size golf club duct taped to the top bar of his bike,
Oh my
and
goodness.
he comes to the ride, and I'm like, why are you embarrassing me? What is that golf club for? What is going, girl? It's
Oh
like, what is
no.
going on? He was like, well, yesterday I was riding alone and some dogs chased me. He said, he said, all I could hear was like a, it was their little feet. Their little feet just running through the high grass, and they almost got me. They almost got me.
Oh my
Then
goodness.
he said, I hear that. He said, I just stepped on those pedals, and he said, if they come at me again, I'm ready for them. I'm ready
He's
for
like,
them. I was like,
oh
oh
my
my
goodness.
gosh.
He's like, I got my own defense mechanism. I'm going to bring my
Exactly.
own club.
And he had it duct tape where he could get it out really quick. And so it wasn't like it was, tightly duct taped to the bite. It would stay in
Yeah.
position, but he could get it out quickly.
Oh my
So just wanted to
goodness.
give him a shout out. There was another ride. We're actually invited him as a guest to a ride I was going on. And
Yeah.
he started off. So there were two groups, a slower group and the faster group. And back then I was, I knew I was in the slow group category, but,
Mhm.
he thought he was in the fast group category and got dropped.
Uh-oh.
Uh, got dropped. The group left him. So he's meandering around trying to figure out how to get back. And so when we all got back, the slower group and then the
Hmm.
faster group came in, and I was like, where's my friend Nate? They were like, we don't know. We thought he was with you. And I was like, no, I left him with you.
Yeah.
So this was we're in this really affluent area in New York with, I guess, I don't know, the houses are so expensive that they don't invest in street lights. I'm like,
Oh
you all pay
boy.
taxes, you all need some street lights out here, because I should have to meander. If anybody comes out at me, I'm just hitting them. It is so dark back there. And
Hmm.
the ride ended about 8 o'clock, and it was about 10 o'clock by the time he actually found his way back. And I was
Oh my
just like, oh,
gosh. Oh my
I was like, oh
goodness.
my God, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. I'm not bringing you back to any more rides. So, unfortunately, he was sick. He got
Mm.
sick last year, and he lost his battle.
Oh
And
no.
just want to give him a shout out. He was my ride or die, and we will miss you dearly, Nate. And pretty much almost similar to you, Mimi. Every ride
Hmm.
that I did in Rochester, he was there. He was there with me.
Ready to roll out anytime.
Absolutely.
Those are such special memories because I know that every time we go out, you're really kind of riding and talking. Some groups that you ride with, they don't really talk, so it's really interesting, and I really appreciate that part that we get to chat with each other, we get to catch up. And hey, it's also a good sign that we're not overexerting ourselves because we can actually breathe and talk and keep up with each other and learn how to ride somebody's wheel. So they'll be like, I can remember you telling me, just stay on my wheel, just stay on my wheel. And I'm like, I'm trying, but you guys are going so fast. And then when I would finally catch up with you guys, then it's ready to go off. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Sure, we didn't give you a break, Mimi. Are
I
you
don't, I think
sure?
I got like two breaths and then we were gone.
Yeah, that's not how I remember the story. Yeah, usually when the last person comes in, I usually give them a reprieve for a few minutes. So
Minutes.
we differ on that version of the story.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, it's just so encouraging to know that okay, yes, we achieved this. And I even use some of your lines too with other people now, like when they're learning to ride and they're getting their distance and everything. I'm like, well, if you could do 25 miles, you could do 50. And if you could do 50 miles, then you could do 100. We're like,
Absolutely.
encourage them to keep pushing themselves to go further and further.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you are using some of my lines. And I guess one of my
Hmm.
favorite lines is, what is it about hills? I love hills. I love hills.
Give me another hill.
You chant, I love
Hills build
hills.
character.
Hills build
Yes,
character.
there's
That's what it is. Yes, yes,
yes.
yes. Hills build character. That's what I would tell my cyclists. Hills build character. And they're like, what? We can't, we're struggling. You're talking about building character? Like, just come on,
Hmm.
you can just do it. But yeah, and that's one thing I just love about my cycling group, about me. I love people, and I love
Yeah.
encouraging people and riders to, especially those who think they cannot do
Yeah.
this ride or a ride, and they get to the end of the ride and they feel fantastic. It's like, wow, this is really
Yeah.
fun. And the other thing I kind of pat myself on the back for is there have come people, a few people have said, they used to ride alone all the time, and after coming to the
Oh
Yellow
yeah.
Jacket rides, Tracy is one of the people that says that. Tracy Wexstein, she
Hmm.
says, I don't want to ride alone anymore because it's just so much fun. Why would I ride alone?
Yeah. Like who else, if you're riding by yourself, who else can you blame for getting lost, You can always point to someone, well, I was just following him, and then that's why we got lost, we got off track or whatever. But yeah, and it even helps, to drive you, to encourage you to try to ride better and further or faster, or even with a cadence, so that you could keep, a nice rhythm and be able to go further and faster and not burn out, So those are some of the important parts of it.
Right. And you mentioned something earlier too. Every ride one does leads to a better ride the next time. So even if you've only
Mm,
done one ride, your next ride's going to be better, and your third ride's going to be even better. So all of it
yeah.
adds on. You've got muscle memory in your legs,
Mm-hmm.
and it all matters. It all matters. So really, by the time you're on your fifth, sixth, or 10th ride, you're going to see improvement because every
Mm-hmm.
ride matters. Every ride matters.
It definitely does. I tell people, I'm like, I feel like I could probably just jump on the bike and go 50 miles. Like, yeah, 50 miles is nothing. They're like, wow, 50 miles. I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, your body just kind of remembers, like, okay, you're going to pace yourself. You're going to get through this. Now, the 100 miles, I might have to, like build myself back up to again, if I'm going to do another century.
Speaking of century, Mimi, I remember your first century. That
Mm-hmm.
was the ramen ride for kids, right? Remember your
Yeah.
dad, your mom, your whole family was at the finish line. You had a new niece at the time. That
Yeah, my
little
little
beautiful,
baby Brooke.
yeah, that little baby. She was so beautiful. How old is she now?
She's 7 now. She's about to be 8 this year, this
Wow. So that
summer.
was about 7 years, 8 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And now look at me. And then I remember one time I went down to I also hooked up with the Black Girls Do Bike in New York. And they had like a national bike ride or whatever in Atlanta. So I'm like, okay, yeah, we went down, we had a group go to Atlanta, and it was hella hot, and not just hot, but it was humid. I realize I do not do well in humidity on
Oh,
this
really?
ride. Yes. So
Oh,
I was like about to pass out from exhaustion, from like heat exhaustion. And my dad was there and he was also doing the ride, but we had separated on paths. I think maybe he was doing 75 and I was doing the 100 miles. And so he could hear them on the radio, like, yeah, we're here with a woman and, she's suffering from heat exhaustion. We may have to like call the paramedics or whatever. And they're like, they were trying to, give me like, I ice pack on my neck and everything. And I couldn't even eat like a peanut butter jelly sandwich. I was like, just give me the side with the jelly. And I like basically had my head between my legs and, just an ice cloth on me to cool my body down. But my dad happened to be next to the guys with the radio and he's like, oh yeah, they really need to, go help that young lady and, like take care of her because, heat exhaustion can be serious. And and eventually, I started to feel better. Like you just feel all kind of like cramps and horrible, and it's just the worst thing ever. But I finished the ride. I mean, they had to give me, you know me, I wanted to finish the ride. I'm like, I'm going to get back on the bike. Because I only had like maybe 20 miles left. And they're like, why don't we drive you about 5-10 miles and then you could go in the last 10 miles? They like, we just want to be sure you're okay. So I basically did like 90 miles, but I still went over the finish line. I still was able to finish. But after that, I was like, okay, I definitely need 2 water bottles. One is just plain water in case I just need to pour it over my body just to cool my body down. And the other has the electrolytes and everything where you can, kind of pump yourself back up. Have a little bit of mustard packs in my in my pocket. But yeah, that was like I literally was like, I can't believe, it was just yeah, it was crazy.
wow. I don't think I remember that story, Mimi. But yeah, you do have to
Mm-hmm.
be careful. If it's really hot, it's almost like running a marathon in really hot weather or cycling in really, really,
Yeah,
really hot weather, really humid weather. You always have to listen to your body. And I'm glad that you
exactly.
stopped at some point and said, hey, you know what? I need help. Because
Right. Yeah.
you know, when you get that heat exhaustion in your body, bad things can
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, bad things
I
can happen.
remember feeling like, huh, I've never felt like this before. And you're drinking water, and I'm like, this water is not helping me. It's just like a brick in my stomach. I'm like, what is going on? So yeah, yeah. But I survived, and I'll probably put a little clip in there of me and Dad at the end of the race. Uh,
Nice. And one thing to also remember for any of your listeners out there, if you know it's going to be really hot the next day,
mhm.
uh, a day or even 2 days before, you should really start drinking a gallon or 2 gallons of water per day,
Mm-hmm.
because that's gonna help you on ride day. So definitely 2 gallons the day before, and maybe even the
Yeah.
day before that, at least a gallon of water, because
Yeah.
all of that helps to keep your body hydrated. Not to say
Mm-hmm.
that what happened to you would not have happened, but that may also kind of ward it off.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember another thing you used to say too is like drink till you pee. If you're
You're
not
not
peeing, if you don't gotta
peeing.
go to the bathroom, you're
That's
not
right.
drinking enough water.
Absolutely. I had one of my riders last summer. I was like, "Do you ever pee?" Like, what is going on? We're all
Right.
going to pee. It's like, nope, nope. It's like, oh my goodness, are you drinking enough?
Right? Yeah. Sometimes it's, you may not want to use a porta potty, but other times, yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta drink, you gotta let it out. That's how
yeah,
you know your body is getting enough fluids and
right.
nutrition.
Absolutely. And you know what? As a cyclist, sometimes that porta potty looks great.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Nobody likes a
Uh,
porta potty, but you know what? Every now and then, we love to ride, and
oh my
it's like, oh,
gosh,
there's a
yes.
porta potty. Let's use it.
Hmm. I remember one time I was biking alone in Pennsylvania because I used to travel for work and yeah, and there was some of those back roads where I was like, maybe I shouldn't be a black woman alone on these back roads. But I there was no bathroom. I didn't see anything in sight. I was like, I'm gonna have to go off-road into these little bushes. And I was like, what if there's ticks in these bushes? So I'm like scared looking around, but I had to go to the bathroom. So I just went off to the road, did my thing, looked around, got on my bike, and kept on going.
Now, Mimi, why were you riding in desolate areas by yourself?
Well, you
Mimi
know,
did not learn this from the Yellow Jacket. Mimi has gone rogue.
I'm pretty sure I have a list of things of what not to do.
Okay, Mimi has gone rogue. She did not learn that from the Yellow Jackets. That's one thing I clearly say, especially in unknown. You're on business
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
Pennsylvania, in a state you're not familiar with, and you're riding. But yeah, also, I do want to tell you that we think that's how one of my friends caught Lyme disease. She
Oh
ended up going
gosh.
to the bathroom in a
Yeah.
desolate area because there were no bathrooms. She said that
Yeah.
is the only way. She said that's the
Hmm.
only thing that she could remember, only
Hmm.
reason that she could have caught Lyme disease. And she was sick for years. It probably took
Oh,
two, three, a good 3, 4 years to really start
wow.
feeling like herself. So if any of your
Yeah.
listeners are out there,
Be careful. Yeah.
be careful. Clearly, if it's your last resort, sometimes it's just your last resort, but you do
Hmm.
want to be careful with that.
Yeah. That's one thing those guys have, they could just
I
stand and
know.
go to the
I
bathroom.
know.
We actually have to like conceal ourselves appropriately.
Guys get it easy. They don't have to have children. They don't have to deal with the
Oh.
monthly. They can just whip it
Hmm.
out.
Oh, so not fair.
It
But
isn't.
but we're awesome, in many, many other ways. So, we kind of went out, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are awesome in many, many other ways. And they cannot live without us.
Oh, it's true. That is true. I need a
They
couple of them in my life as well.
they can't
Oh
live without
gosh.
us. Sometimes they may not want
Hmm.
to live with us, but they cannot live without us.
Oh, so true. 100%.
Absolutely.
Oh, so what else? Is there anything else, like before we get ready to go, but is there anything maybe now that COVID is not over, we're still kind of in a pandemic here, but is there anything that you learned maybe through last year that this year you are gonna like move forward with now that they're starting to open the world back up again, hopefully increasing more bike rides and um yeah, anything that,
So I won't say per se it's anything new that I've learned. Even so,
Mhm.
relative to COVID last year, I was, of course, 1 year ago. What do we May now? 1 year ago, we are all scared to death. It's like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So then I was doing only solo rides. And
Yeah.
then my riding partner, Tony, came back. He was in Florida for like 4 months. He came back, and then we just did the two of us through June. And then I started up the group rides in July. And I would suggest, even if you're riding this year, always have your mask with you just in case, because now we're on this honor system. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated, but you do need to wear a mask if you have not been. And, some of those people who have not been vaccinated didn't want to wear a mask anyway. So now to believe that they're actually going to wear a mask is really just ludicrous. But
Yeah.
anyhow, have your mask handy, enjoy yourself, have fun. If you're out riding and, the wind is blowing, you don't need to have your mask on.
Mm-hmm.
Or, when we came to stoplights last year, and I'll still do that this year, I'll just ask people, to have their mask handy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so do have fun, make it fun. It shouldn't be work. And
Right.
for anybody out there, if you don't have anybody to ride with, do what I did. Just ask a couple of friends, say, hey, ask some people in your
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood.
Right. Yeah.
Do you want to ride, or if let's ride once, or let's ride 3 times a week, even if it's for half an hour or so, even if it's just around the neighborhood. So you can
Yeah.
start small, definitely start small. And you know what, other people are going to see you riding in the neighborhood, and then they're going to want to come, and other people are going to want to come. So anybody can
Yeah.
start their own group, especially now that we're still in the midst of COVID, but people really don't want to go into gyms. Nobody's going to want to go to a spin
Yeah.
class. Who wants to
Mm-hmm.
go to a spin class right now? It'll be a long time. I don't know if I'll ever go back to a spin class. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess, yeah, the one,
Indoors.
right, exactly, indoor
Mm-hmm.
spin class. So one thing that probably that I learned is that start your own cycling group. Get together with people in your neighborhood. Ride around
Yeah.
the neighborhood, or if there's a bike path or something, because it's outdoors. It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to have their mask handy, that's fine. But for the most part, it's outdoors, and it's May now, so we're going to have a good 4 or 5, 6 months, depending on where you are, and
Yeah.
especially in the Northeast, May, June,
Mm-hmm.
July, August, September, October. If you're listening to this outside of the Northeast, you're going to have even longer times to ride outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's great advice because oftentimes I just walk up to people. I remember I met a guy in the bike shop and we were like, oh, what are you doing? We're like, run a ride? Yeah, let's go. So we just left the shop and went off riding. And then, like you say, when I was driving, and I saw someone with a nice kid, I was like, oh, hey, do you ride with a group? Just because I was trying to get familiar with the neighborhood. I was trying to get familiar with New York and get to know people and meet people. So yeah, it worked for me, reaching out, asking, and joining rides.
Yep. And that's a great tip, Mimi. And that's another tip
Hmm.
that I did not mention earlier is
Hmm.
go to your local bike shop, your LBS, as we call it, your local bike shop. Become their friends.
Hmm.
Usually I have not met a bike shop owner or a bike shop that I did not like. They
Hmm.
love cycling just as much as you do. And maybe just ask them, or are there any beginners who've come in, or anybody who's come in who may be looking for a riding partner? Or,
Right.
don't be shy. Are there any people of color who've come in who are
Hmm.
looking for a riding partner? Or here's my information, send them my information, or let them know that I'm also want to start a group, or maybe just want to organize some rides. And then you can ask the bike shop, do they lead or organize group rides where you do not get dropped? And that is key.
Oh, that's important. Yeah.
Yes.
Because some people are very official and they're very fast and you need to keep up with them or bye
Right.
bye.
Right.
And then there's other more casual that will still push you and still encourage you, but we'll make sure that you're not like left behind.
Absolutely.
We don't leave a man behind, right?
No,
So
no man
even if
left
you're
behind.
that's right. Even if you're like 2 hours late, like, okay, we just want to make sure you get in, make sure you're okay. Oh.
I would just encourage people just to get out, have fun, and
Hmm.
and your kids. If you got kids out, get them into riding. Get them. They make sure they have helmets. They
Hmm.
should have everybody should have a helmet.
Everybody should have their
Yeah,
helmet. Yeah.
everybody. Yeah, we should. We did not talk about safety. Everybody should have a
Yeah.
helmet. Everyone,
Hmm.
because everyone says, "Oh, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to fall." A fall happens in a nanosecond.
Hmm.
Easily. A fall happens in a nanosecond. And even before you can say 1, 2, 3, before you can catch yourself, it happens. And
Right.
I've had a couple of friends who said, thank God I had a helmet on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It saved their life. It saved their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Melanie, for
Yeah,
the good words of advice and for joining us
absolutely.
today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy to come back
Oh,
anytime. If anyone
yeah.
wants to reach me, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Melanie Morris
Mhm.
TV on Twitter. If you have any questions, any cycling questions, if you're in the
Yeah.
Boston area, just at Melanie Morris TV, and I'll add you to my cycling list.
I know. And then next time we'll also have to talk about, the TV part, like the voices and the ooh and the ah. And I'm like, oh, and the reading and ooh. I'm like, yes, let's hear that voice some more. Ah, well, good. Well,
Mimi, thank you so much for inviting me on today. This has been a
hmm
pleasure. I always want to talk about cycling. So whenever you want to talk
hmm
about more cycling, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. Okay.
will do. Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
Thanks. All right, podcasters, that's another show we have for you all. And I hope you all enjoyed yourself. And thanks again to Melanie for joining us and giving us some good tips and some stories about biking and cycling. Whether you're in the city or whether you're outside the city, always good information to know on how to stay safe and how to have fun and how to meet new people. So keep telling your Black stories, keep being yourself and encouraging others. And remember, Improper Mimi, we're here to keep sharing those stories about women at home, work, and play. So wherever you are, we want to encourage and empower you. So have a good night, and we'll talk to you later. Ciao. Yay.